Hello, welcome to another episode of Eulogise Me with your host, Roman Harris. That's right, you know what it is. It's the podcast where I invite my guests to write their own eulogy. They then read it on the podcast and we jump into a conversation based on what they've written. This week in the podcast studio, I have comedian Jin Hao Li. Jin is a Chinese comedian based here in the UK, and he has a brand of comedy that I really like. So it was really interesting to sit down and get to know him more. What I will ask from you is to just give me a like, subscribe, tell friends about this podcast, leave a review, and also don't spend too much time looking at me too closely during this episode. It was a hot day and I was sweating my backside off. So, with that being said, let's get into the episode. Here is Jin Hao Li. Welcome to another episode of Eulogise Me. This week on Eulogise Me, I have comedian Jin Hao Li.
Hello.
He in the studio. Have I said that correctly? Have I pronounced that right?
Jin Hao Li is perfect.
Jin Hao Li. You know what? First off, actually, does your name have a meaning?
Oh, we could get into that. Yeah, it kind of does.
I'm just curious. I'm always curious about names.
So, Jin means gold in Chinese. And then I think the second that I was born, my mother did like a calculation and like I lacked gold from all the elements. I think the elements are like fire, water, earth, gold, and one more. And gold was the one that I lacked. So she was like, okay, we'll put gold in the name.
Okay.
Yeah, and Li is because that's my father's surname.
Okay. And what about the Hao?
How the character for How is made up of the characters of sun and sky.
Okay.
I think it just sounds nice.
Got you. So your name, there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of kind of like nature and elements in your name. There's gold, sun and sky.
Yes.
And then just your dad's surname.
Well, Li is also the character for wood and sun.
Okay.
And I think I heard this, I don't know if this is true, but I heard this from an old drama teacher that like the Lis back in maybe not ancient China, but like were like woodsmen or something. This might be him trying to like entertain children. But it's like was it blacksmith? Like there's like smith, like people used to be black. I think it's something similar.
Something similar along those lines.
Yeah.
Got you. When you said this is you think this could potentially just be his way of trying to entertain children, I was thinking that there's much worse ways. So I'm glad that was. I'm glad that was the level that this teacher went to. I genuinely can't remember the first time I saw you perform. I don't really remember where it was, but I remember seeing you perform. Do you remember?
I remember meeting you.
Where was the first time we met?
It was at a gig with Chin on an upstairs at a pub.
Right.
Yes.
That was in Hammersmith.
Yes.
Yes, and she said that you were her brother.
Yes.
And because
what a racist joke.
And I just took it as standard. I was like, well, if you say this is your brother, it's your brother. But I think that's the first time we met. But the first time I saw you actually perform, I just remember thinking to myself, this is a bit of me. Like, it's not the type of comedy that I do, but a lot of the time you find that the comedy that you enjoy is not always what you perform yourself. Sometimes
true.
I've discovered that what I really like is someone who does things that in my mind, I'm like, I don't even know how they thought of that. Yeah. And I don't think I would have ever thought of that in 1,000 years. And that is what I see every time I see you perform. I'm
like a vessel, do you think? A vessel for some of your stranger thoughts?
I feel like, it's like you're channeling the stranger thoughts that I don't know how to put out into the universe, but you do. And that's why it's so enjoyable watching you perform,
That's so lovely. Thank you so much.
No worries. I mean, I speak from the heart.
I think it's true. Yeah, what you said, like the comedy you enjoy is not usually what you put. My favorite comedian is probably like Chris Rock. I don't think I do that. I don't think I'm like him.
I think it's fair to say that you're definitely not Chris Rock. Like,
I mean, I think I grew up watching a lot of his stuff, and I think he has such a funny voice.
Yeah.
And I love when he screams, but I don't think I have any of that.
Your demeanor as you come across right now, very calm, very relaxed, very well thought out and paced. You transcend. You take that onto stage.
You were gonna say transcend.
I was gonna say transcend, but I was like, I don't know if that's the right use of the word.
No, I would love to transcend any day.
But genuinely, it's like it really is like that. I mean, I could genuinely eulogize about some of the bits that you've written, but that isn't necessarily why we're here per se. But there's some great bits. And anyone listening to this, if you've never seen Jin Hao Li perform, then 100% make a note. You have to.
Please.
But I'm gonna ask you, what were your thoughts when I first asked you to write your own eulogy?
My first thought was, at what age do I perish? That was my first thing, because I think that would highly change. And I think a good age, the age I picked was 85. I think I would love to clock out at 85. I think that's a good run. That's 420 years, and I think that's really good.
And how old are you now?
I turned 26 in December. I'm 25 now.
Okay, got you.
So I'm a quarter of the way through.
Yes.
I'm the first quarter.
Well,
Is
just
that a football thing? I don't know.
What? Yeah. No, it's so not.
Wait, I meant football as in the American one.
Oh, the American football.
I always hear, you watch like American media and they're like, we're in the third quarter. I'm in the first quarter right now.
You are in the first quarter, moving into that second quarter.
Yeah.
How do you feel that first quarter has gone so far?
I've lived a very blessed life. In that, like, I've moved around a lot. Well, I've moved around twice, but I think I was quite lucky to be able to do that. Yeah, I'm from like a small town in China.
Yeah.
And then my mom was like, you can't be anything here. And then so she wanted to go to Canada, but then we couldn't make it to Canada. So then the next best thing was Singapore.
Got you. So the small town in China that you're from, what's the name of that town?
It's called Tonghua.
Tonghua.
Yeah, Jilin Tonghua.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it famous for anything in China? Like, is it known for anything in particular?
I think we have good red wine.
Okay.
The grapes are good, and we make good red wine. And I think, I think the Northeast region is known for like people being loud, and we have good tigers. We have Northeast tigers, and it's cold.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say it's like a cultural mecca.
Understood.
Actually, I take that back. I think this summer I went back and I did learn that there is a lot of like performance art based things. I think people are quite cheerful and friendly there. I think that's what we're known for.
Okay. Well, I mean, as far as being known for things, I'd say that's a good amount of positive things to be known for, especially being warm and cheerful.
Yeah.
You said also that you tried to get to Canada, but you couldn't make it, which sounds ominous. But I'm like, why? What happened? Why couldn't you make it to Canada?
My dad failed the English test by like 3 points. And my mom divorced him because of that. But I think it's fun. It's not a sad thing. They took a train from Beijing. They took a train to Beijing, which took like a day, and then they left the exam hall. He failed it by 3 points, and my mom was like, "I'm leaving you." But he was like, "Okay, that's fair." Like, no, it wasn't. Yeah, they walked to the divorce courts holding hands, so it wasn't like. I don't think they married out of love. Like, they just married out of that was who you were dating at the time.
I mean, based on how they divorced, I don't think it was love. I mean, that sounds. That sounds like the most amicable divorce ever.
There was some friction, but it was I think there's some love there, but it's not the way that like. Well, I guess nothing is perfect, but I couldn't make it to Canada. Imagine how Simu Liu is from the province next to mine. Do you think I'm as handsome as him? Do you think I could have?
I'm sitting here like, who is that?
Oh, Simu Liu.
Like,
he's
you're overestimating how much I know.
He's Shang-Chi. He was Ken in the Barbie movie. He's
I
a
mean,
Chinese cat.
you know, this is it. You're assuming I've seen the Barbie movie.
Have you seen? Have you seen? Do you watch Marvel?
Yeah.
He's the Chinese one. There's only one. He's the Chinese.
Well, you see,
Marvel.
now it would be really bad if I was like, I still don't know who that is. 'Cause
No,
then it
that's
would be.
what else is Simu in? He was in this sitcom called Kim's Convenience. That was nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've got me reason to go Googling, that's for sure.
There's no need.
So how old were you when your mum divorced your dad and you moved to Singapore?
I think I was born 98. I went to Singapore 2005. So that's like 7.
Okay.
I spent 7 years in China.
And did you like still stay in touch with your dad? Is he still
it's
around?
it's all good. Both of them remarried to other people. One time I said both of them remarried, and then people assumed that they got back together. But
Yeah, because that's exactly where my brain went.
It's all fun. I'm very pro divorce.
Okay.
I'm pro moving forward and making choices as they come, you know.
I'm not against you with that either. Like, genuinely, when people tell me that they've either broken up or gotten divorced, my first thought isn't always like my reaction is generally, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But then my second thought is always, but if it's come to an end, it's come to an end for a reason, and that might be a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
So
I it's good to know that nothing is I always say, like, you can always get divorced, you can always get your tattoo removed, you can change religions. Like, it's
nothing's permanent.
Nothing's permanent. You should do it as they come.
Yeah. I mean, I take that back. Some things are definitely permanent, but then, you know, most decisions you can rewrite them.
What are some permanent things, Roman?
Limb loss?
What's limb loss?
Like losing a leg or an arm.
Limb loss. Okay. I thought it was limb loss sounded like a shoegaze album. I'm thinking of I think My Bloody Valentine has an album called Loveless, and that's what in my brain. I was like, oh, limb loss.
Maybe there's something in there. Maybe the Edinburgh show at some point. I'll name it that.
Limb loss.
But listen, like before we go so deep into your life, because there's so many things that I genuinely feel like I want to know about you because I don't know anything about you, genuinely. Like when I think about it, that's part of the reason why I enjoy doing these podcasts.
Just to get to know someone.
Just to get to know someone. But I try to get to know them through their eulogy. So
nice.
At this stage, I'm going to hand it over to you. It's the podcast where I invite my guests to write and read their own eulogy. So with that being said, it is over to Jin Hao Li to read your eulogy.
Thank you all for coming out. And please keep that energy going for our guest speaker, the voice of sadness from Inside Out. It's Phyllis Smith, because it's a funeral, the voice of sadness. And then Phyllis Smith goes, as the voice of sadness, I can confidently say I am the perfect act for this gig. It's a tragedy to lose such a young comedian at age 85. He was known to hate birthdays, often saying, why don't we celebrate the moms? They're the ones who put in the work. When you were born, all you did was scream and cry. Birthdays are so stupid. On his deathbed, he revealed to me that his whole I hate birthdays thing was a defense mechanism because he was worried no one would wish him. Even though he shares a birthday with icons such as Chairman Mao. So to ensure that everyone remembers his day of departure, we're going to put the fun in funeral. Look under your seats. That's right. Goodie bags for everybody. Take out the stuff. What do we have? That's right. Airline vouchers for everyone. Plus free tickets to see Soulja Boy in concert. I can see his 12 children panicking. Yes, he used all his savings on the budget for this funeral, and he left no will to you. Okay.
Very, very fun eulogy. Right? I genuinely enjoyed reading your eulogy. I was like, he's had fun with that one.
This is the final one. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
So that's your notes.
Yeah, these are my notes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, all right. Yeah. No, this is what I read. Yeah, this is what I believe you sent through, to be honest.
Nice.
Okay, fantastic. So obviously you took more of a creative, fun approach to writing your eulogy, which I respect. Why did you go down that route? Tell me why.
I think as a 25-year-old, I don't feel like I have a story yet, which I can't be true, but I think if I did a serious eulogy, I wouldn't know how.
Mm.
Also, there's some stuff in here that's kind of real, like the birthday thing is kind of true.
Well, okay.
Okay. Um, I think I just I was like, oh, I don't know how to get serious when it's like something so real. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. Well, I like the angle you took. I like any angle, I'll be honest. I like when people are, if people want to get serious or if they want to do it in a jovial fashion. Either way, it doesn't faze me because I always feel as though there's something within that eulogy where there is an element of truth, but it's also a great conversation starter, right? And where I'm going to jump off with you, because I had to Google some of this stuff.
Yes.
You chose the voice of Phyllis Smith. Yeah,
Yes.
to read your eulogy for you. Okay. So I had to Google and find out that she was the voice of sadness from the movie Inside Out, which I have not seen, but I understand the premise of the movie. Right. Why did you choose Phyllis Smith? I mean, obviously, yes, she's the voice of sadness, but this is very, very specific.
Roman, I gotta be real. That's the only reason. Also, I don't know who she is.
Oh, you really don't know who she is?
I just was like, who would be the perfect? Okay, I knew I wanted the eulogy to start off with and keep that energy going. I think that's a fun thing to say at a funeral.
Yeah.
And then I was like, who would be a good guest speaker? And I think to have the voice of sadness do a funeral, that's so funny to me. And I think it's funny if the people at the funeral is gonna be mostly my family members who they're not gonna know who Phyllis Smith is. So they're like, who is this person? And I think it's funny that if Phyllis Smith has to explain, oh, it's because on a cartoon I was the voice of sadness, funerals are sad. That's why I was booked for this bill. I don't know anything else about her. Also, when I watched Inside Out, I fell asleep in the cinema.
Okay, got ya. I mean, it feels like I've done more research into Phyllis Smith than you ever did.
But let's talk about Phyllis. I would love to hear the Smith notes.
No, there's no Smith notes.
Okay.
I didn't go deep into who Phyllis was. I just needed to know who she was for the context because I was like, who is Phyllis Smith? I had no idea. And then I found out about the whole movie and whatnot.
Yeah. She's the voice of sadness.
You said that like you said funerals are generally sad. You associate sadness with funerals. Do you feel like they can ever be joyful or happy? Do you have any alternative views on that?
Yes. The same drama teacher that told me about the woodsman thing, he told us this other. Now that I'm thinking, is he just making all this stuff to entertain children? But he told a story about once he went to Indonesia, and he's like one of these people who likes to have fun. So then he met some of the local villagers, and they took him to a funeral. And this funeral they had to like paddle by boat there. It's like off the mainland. And when it was there, they don't the body isn't in a coffin. They just put it on the boat and they just dump it in the ground, and the whole thing was surrounded by like people drinking and like cheering because it's like it's a celebration of this person is finally let go of the burden of life. So it was like a party. And then he was telling us more like to be like, you know, the way funerals are usually like presented is like, oh, people wear suits and ties and it's a sad thing.
Yeah, I know this probably won't get picked up in the mic, but the ice cream man is outside.
Yeah.
And it was just such a apt moment or a weird moment to hear the sound of the ice cream man. But
when I would love to get I think at my funeral the catering is gonna be epic. And there's gonna be ice cream man, there's gonna be hot pot, there's gonna be fried chicken. I think that's the menu for and then yeah. So I think when he told us that and I was very young, so I think I was like, oh, actually like death can be seen as a celebration, like along with the grief, I think.
Yeah. I think sometimes we put a lot of emphasis on the sadness of it, and I think which is a bit interesting to me because there's a lot of people who are religious.
Mm.
And on that note, just quickly, are you religious?
I used to be Christian.
Used to be Christian. I wasn't raised with religion, so I've never been religious. But there's a lot of people who believe in something, and the idea that life after this one is actually going to be lovely and glorious and no pain. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, surely you'd want to get there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, let's not be sad when that happens. It should be a celebration if you genuinely believe that.
It's like pro-divorce. It's like I'm moving forward.
Yes, it's almost like we're coming full circle here. There's some things in the universe right here with this conversation. But no, you're right. Like, so yeah, I think it can be celebratory, but it's all about perspective, you know, in many ways.
I think in Chinese mythology, like hell isn't, it's more a cleansing than it is a punishment. And I know, like, well, back when I was Christian, like, it's like, oh, that's it. You messed up, and that's it. But in Chinese, it's like you get reincarnated, so you go through hell, and you do get punished for some things. But then afterward, you like come back as a fish because you've let go of your past life.
Got you.
And I think that's fun, and like I think in that regard, I remember my step grandmother's funeral. There was a lot of like there was a real performance to it. Like we all had to, like because I was like my stepdad's child, like he was the youngest, so then I had to put on this like costume, and we have to like walk these rounds like around the coffin to symbolize like she's moving on to the next. It's not that she's gone forever, it's that she's gonna come back as a fish.
So walking around the coffin was like symbolic of like the cycle.
I think
like,
so,
to some degree.
There was like I remember we built a bridge, like a little bridge. This is just underneath our building, and then we just like crossing the bridge. I remember my stepdad telling me like, oh, that's her crossing the bridge or something.
Got you.
Like really cool. Yeah.
So could you say you used to be Christian, so why did you lose religion? Or have you lost religion totally?
I've entirely quit the club.
Yeah, what happened? Why did you give back your membership?
It was too expensive.
Did you not keep up the subscriptions? That's what I was thinking.
I couldn't renew, and they were like, "Don't go. We have these other deals." I felt like it had nothing to do with me. Is
Tell
that
me more.
silly? Oh, okay. This is how I really feel. Okay. I look at Christianity the way I look at Harry Potter. Okay, this is how I feel. You know how in like Harry Potter, like, why is all this magic happening in the UK? Do you know what I mean? Like, what about the rest of the world? Like, and I know there's like that Triwizard tournament where they like got people from like France or something. But I'm just like, wait, if Voldemort is the biggest thing in the world and he just wants to attack Parliament, like that feels very self-centered. And I know like, and I find like when I was a Christian, I was like, okay, well, this is all very happened in the ancient Middle East. I don't know if it has anything to do with me. Like, I feel like I don't come from this lore. It's nothing to do with like the philosophy. Obviously, I think like forgiveness, I think is a really cool, like forgiveness unconditionally, I think is a cool thing to do.
I love that. Yeah, like forgiveness is cool.
Forgiveness is dope.
Yeah.
But like, I was just like, oh, I don't know if this is my story. Like, this is Old Testament, like the stories of the Jews. And then like, I was like, and then there's one part in the Bible where it's like letters to the churches of Asia. But that's like Cho Chang and Harry Potter. Where it's like, okay, we'll throw in a Chinese girl to have international appeal. Also, the letters to the churches in Asia, correct me if I'm wrong, that's like Turkey. That's not like my Asia. So I think a huge part of it was like, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it resonates.
But that's
all
fair.
The names are like Hezekiah, and I'm like, I'm Jin Hao. But I have a good friend named Hezekiah, but I don't think it's wrong to if you're Chinese and you are Christian. Most of my friends are still Christians.
But I think it's very fair. Like the point you make is like, the teachings, I think that we can all get behind a lot of the teachings, like you said.
Excellent.
But at the same time, there is that element of how much of myself do I see in this thing? And I think that's a fair question to ask. Yeah. Probably more people probably should ask themselves that question, but they don't, because you're taught one thing and then you just do that for the rest of your life, when really maybe asking the question isn't a bad idea.
I think some of my friends find a connection to like the whole like Jerusalem from 2000 years ago. I think they're like, oh, okay, if this is where truth originates, then I connect with that. I think I was going through a phase of like, I really missed my family back in China. So I think I was just like, and the more I went to church, the more I'm just like, what am I doing? Like it didn't feel genuine to me.
You know, you said you missed your family back in China.
Yeah.
And you've been in the UK now for how many years have you been?
This is my 5th year, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in Singapore, you moved to Singapore when you were about 7, you said? So you spent most of your life, I guess, outside of China.
Yeah, I spent most of my life in Singapore, which I love.
Yeah. Do you ever kind of long for more connection towards your culture, being here in the UK, or do you feel like you actually get quite a lot of it here?
You know what's crazy is I find this very interesting. Okay, I would say that Singaporean Chinese culture is different from like mainland Chinese culture. I think there's a slight difference, and obviously like, so basically like the Chinese people in Singapore like immigrated from mainland China. Like the natives to Singapore were like the Malay people, and then immigration, blah blah blah. In Singapore, like me and my Chinese friends, we speak to each other in English because that's just what everyone speaks, because colony, blah blah blah. And I never really get to use Chinese unless it's like with my mom. I've actually used more Chinese now that I've moved to UK, because I've met people like Chin,
Got you.
who has that community of like people from mainland China.
Yeah.
That's like, and they use Chinese with each other. So I've experienced a weird thing where like kind of moving away from that has helped me actually get in touch with like mainland Chinese people.
Wow. That's interesting.
It's a weird journey, but I'm grateful to. Yeah.
But that's really cool, and I think it's also a great sign of the multicultural element of a place like London. I was going to say the UK, but let's stick to cities. You know, coming back to your eulogy, you mentioned age, and you mentioned losing your life at the young age of 85, right? And we've touched on age already a little bit in terms of the quarters that you kind of see your life progressing in. How do you feel about aging?
Oh, I love aging. And okay, whenever I say this, I know there's an element of like, I am a man and I don't face the pressures of like, I think it's harder for like girls to age. However, I can only speak from my own experience, and my own experience is that like, I think youth is like an attitude that you can have at old age, whereas age is like wisdom that can't be replaced. So I don't think you lose potential as you grow older. I think you just gain experience. Like I'm just getting better at the things that I want to do, and I think I'm becoming a better person. I don't know if this is just like naivety and like in 5 years I'm gonna panic, but I truly do think that like I like growing old. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for older people. I just think like I enjoy it a lot.
Because I guess speaking as someone who, you know, obviously is, well, let me see, you're 20. How old did you say you were? Sorry,
I'm 25.
25, yeah. So I've got 13 years on you, right? And I feel like as you get older, a lot of what you said is very true in the sense of you do gain more wisdom. Sometimes with that wisdom, on a personal level, I found comes a little tinge of regret, because as you get wiser, you then look back on yourself from like years ago and you think, oh, well, if I'd known that then I would have done this. Or if only I had seen that then I could have been there. And then you can get into that headspace. So I think it's just important to always keep a gauge where you appreciate that as you become wiser, there will be things that you'll know that you just couldn't have known back then, but not to beat yourself up about it. That's what I'm having to learn, you know.
And do you just on that point of like regret, I'm sure like there's older people in your life that have warned you about things, but do you think like you have to make the mistakes to be able to, like, hearing about the warning, that's not going to do anything? Like, do you think like we have to just mess up to learn the lesson? Like, do you think that's just...
I think in a major way, we do have to have the experience in order for it to really like be cemented within us. I do think we can get advice and take it. I think that's possible, right? But in terms of a learning experience, you're always going to learn more when you experience it yourself.
Of course.
It's like, as comedians, I could tell you about bombing.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, I could explain it to you,
exactly. Yeah.
and what you might feel and what you might think afterwards. But unless you experience it yourself, you'll never really know, and you'll never develop those mechanisms of how to overcome it and deal with it.
Yes.
So it goes both ways.
So before the recording, Roman and I were talking about, yesterday I went to Western Supermare, and this lady, Suzanne, if you're watching, this is about you. Suzanne asked me,
Suzanne?
What's up, Suzanne? What's up? She was like, do you have any advice? And I was truly like, you kind of just have to do it. It's like what you said. I'm just like, you kind of just have to bomb. Like, like you can hear about bombing all day, but you really just have to bomb, and then it will get better. Like, I don't think you can get worse at a thing. I don't know.
Well, I think you have to have an ability to self-assess. And if you can self-assess, then you can bomb and get better. Yes. But if you can't self-assess, you won't improve.
Like, why do I keep bombing?
Exactly.
I'm doing the same stuff.
Exactly. And then after a while, you just be like, these people just don't get me. You know, it's their fault. And it's like, no, if you can self-assess and take some advice, some criticisms, and work on stuff, then you can improve. But there are probably some people out there who will just bomb and bomb and bomb, and they will never understand what's happening. And it's like, I can't help you.
My favorite thing is like, the night that you bomb and your comedian friend bombs at somewhere else, and you guys text each other. That is the great. Shout out to Hassan Al Habib. Last night, after I did the Western Supermare show, which went a solid 6 out of 10, Hassan texted me and was like, bro, I just bombed so hard. And I was like, yes, I'm so happy that we're both.
It's a weird thing where you kind of take it's not that you take real joy, but there's a comfort when you speak to a fellow comic, or you can see a fellow comic on stage and it's not going well.
It's funny.
And you're at the back and you're just like, oh my God. Especially if you know they're good. Like, if you know they're good and they've had good nights, watching someone bomb who's actually a good comic is an amazing thing.
I love it so much.
But yeah, man. Okay, so with aging, like you said, you take a more positive approach where that's concerned. Birthdays.
Yes.
Because I really thought your take on birthdays was actually quite original. I don't think I've heard this one before. But do you
really?
Yeah, nah. But do you really, like, do you genuinely hate birthdays though? Do you actually, or is it a feeling of you're just scared that people aren't gonna?
I have so many thoughts on this. I don't actually hate it. I think I was trying to act cool when I was young. I was like, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. But okay. My mom used to say to me, there's this like saying in Chinese that's like, your child's birthday is the mother's. It directly translates to bitter day. In Chinese, we use the word bitter to describe a lot of like hardship and stuff. And what that means is just like, like on the day you're born, it was like tough. And I was like, yeah, she should get the cake. Like, right. Why are you getting the cake? Like, she put in all that effort.
Right.
It was so painful. And then but then we're celebrating you. I think when I was young, I used to think that. But I think I was probably just trying to be like an emo, edgy kid. I was like, oh, you should respect your mother. I think, right, as much as I love attention, I get very shy about like, I have this vivid memory of people singing happy birthday to me. And I'm sure most people feel this way. And I just felt very like, oh, I don't enjoy this. Like, I feel like I don't deserve this. Oh, sorry. I'm just thinking right now, like, why do I think that joy has to be earned?
See, what's interesting also is that, you know, there's an admission that you like attention.
Yeah.
But then there's a feeling of when you're in the spotlight and getting that attention, there's a feeling of, oh, no, not me.
I think when it's unearned,
I
think I feel a bit like...
Got you.
Oh.
So there's a feeling that, like, in order for the attention to be, for you to accept it and to actually embrace it and enjoy it, you have to feel like you've done something for it. You've earned it. You've worked to get it.
If someone sings happy birthday to me, I feel like a Kardashian.
Got you.
Like I haven't not earned all this attention.
I don't think the Kardashians feel that way.
No, so the Kardashians live in a constant birthday state.
Yeah.
Every moment of their lives is monetized and important. And I there's also another thing is like, one thing that really breaks my heart is like, if someone has a birthday party and no one turns up, that really, I'm cringing thinking about it now. I have this memory of my primary school friend Joel. He had a birthday party and a lot of people turned up. But the thing is, like, we were children, so like we don't care about whatever. And then I think the mom tried to make everyone sing happy birthday and no one paid attention.
Oh.
And I remember seeing the mom being a bit disappointed, and that really like hurt my feelings.
You know, because that shows a lot of empathy from your standpoint, you know, even as a child, because you know, like how you were saying with birthdays, really, the mum should be like getting the praise. At the same time, if your child is hurt or you can see that they're not getting a degree of attention, I think as a parent, you probably look at it like, oh, that's an extension of me. Like, and I'm not getting that attention either. You know, it's like this tethering between parent and child, where if the child's hurting, you're hurting. And if the child's happy, you're happy. So that must have proper hurt the mum to be like, all of these people are here, but none of them are really concerned about my child right now.
Which is like, okay, because everyone's a children, like they don't know how. But I think, I think the thing you said about like, I think if I see a scene where like if a young kid says to the mom or the parent like, I'm getting bullied at school, I think I feel worse for the parent.
Yeah.
Just because I'm like, you're meant to be bullied at school. Wait, is that bad to say? But I'm just like, no, but you're meant to not have friends for a while, and puberty is tough.
Right.
I guess the mom is also meant, like the parent is also meant to like have, but I don't know. I just feel worse for the.
I think it's because you're helpless as a parent. Like you can't go into the school and then be like,
be friends with my.
Stop bullying my kid and be friends with. Like you don't. You're helpless. There is really a helplessness. Yeah. So I can understand that. That feeling of sorrow towards the parent, because you make a fair point. You got to go through those trials and tribulations as a child. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
You know, do you really share your birthday with Chairman Mao?
Yes, on purpose.
Is it?
Can I say the story? Do you want me to say the story?
Yeah.
Okay, so my grandparents got married on his birthday, like on purpose, because like. Back then people just worshipped him, and which is the 26th of December, and then I was a C-section, so I think I was late, and then the doctors asked my mom like, oh, pick a date, and then my mom picked her parents' anniversary. Yeah. So indirectly, I was picked to be born on the same day as Chairman Mao, which I think is kind of sick. I'm him.
Yeah. I was gonna say, do you share any traits?
No, I don't like starving people. Oh, low battery on your laptop.
Oh, shit.
We're back.
We are back, man. The laptop was about to die. When I set this podcast up, there's so many things that I have to remember. So, like, there's a part of me that's like, okay, yeah, make sure that you've got the time set up on the laptop so you can see how long you've done. Lights, camera, everything's plugged in. And then usually there's always just that one little thing you forget. But
it's always it's like forgetting your keys. It's the one thing that's
man. But Jin is here with the eagle eyes to notice. Appreciate it.
Here we go. Caw-caw. That's not ego.
Caw-caw. You mentioned maybe there's truth to this. Maybe there's also a bit of a joke to it. Yeah. But you mentioned 12 children.
It's
12
true.
children.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on family? What's your thoughts on... In fact, let me ask you a bit about your family. Do you have any siblings? You got
I
any...
have no siblings.
Is it? So it's just you?
One child policy, baby. Chairman Mao.
Ah.
Wait, I don't know if he's the one who's... I don't know the history of the one child policy.
Yeah.
I should.
Got
Yeah,
ya.
it's just me.
So it's just you.
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on family and the idea of like having kids of your own? Like what are your...
I want to have like... I want to have like 5 kids.
Yeah, like this is a very specific number.
If my wife agrees.
Mm.
Okay, I like 3 max. I just think it's a good invest. Wow, is it a good investment? Well, it's just like
Tell me more about the investment. This sounds really business wise.
at a certain point, I'm gonna stop making money, and I'm gonna need other people to fend for me. And I think 3 is better than 1. You know,
This is the most honest assessment of having kids, but also it makes the most sense also.
yeah,
Like I have a thought process regarding kids, right? In the sense that I feel like there's no selfless reason to have them. I feel like any reason to have kids is actually selfish,
of course.
right? So if you just admit it and be like, look, I'm making this investment so that when I'm old, I might have a few people who are going to look out for me and give me some money. Cool. Let's just say what it is.
Just be real. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the angle you're coming from.
I also think I think it would be nice for my children to have each other. I think that when I look at my friends with siblings, I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun, that they're just playing with each other. Yeah, I think I want that for them.
Do you feel like you missed that element growing up?
I think maybe, but I really like who I am now, so I don't really regret anything in my life. I do think that like me being alone has led me to this career, in that like I was given a lot of space to... I think I was given a lot of attention, and I was like the only child, and like my mom was the oldest. So then my uncle and my auntie didn't have kids when I was a kid. So then I was really, I was like a bad kid. I was swearing. I was saying the F word in Chinese,
Which is...
Cao. And I used to say that in the house. It was insane. But I think like that made me develop maybe like the skills I have now.
Do you feel like that way of being, was it like, were you acting out because of frustration? Like, would you say you were a bad kid because you wanted attention?
I was a prince. I was a boy prince. My grandma spoiled me. Or just in that, like, I knew that, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to be fine. My mom used to run a kindergarten, and I used to bully the children there because I was like, well, my mom's the principal.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
See, this is so interesting to me because your demeanor, as you come across now, it feels like you've gone through a transition.
Yeah.
From what you're expressing of being like a bad kid, a bit of a bully.
Yeah.
And you seem like someone who's quite chilled and, you know, quite relaxed and quite peaceful. But maybe I'm like, is this a facade? Or I'm just like,
so kindergarten, I was a bully. Primary school, I was bullied. Secondary school was chill. I think it's good to go through both phases.
Yeah. Why so?
Because then you understand, like, I think you have to be cruel and then be like, oh, that doesn't feel good. And then you can learn from it.
Playing both sides of the fence. Like, again, that kind of comes back to the question that you asked in a way with regards to whether you can get advice and, you know, take it, or if you feel like you have to live through it.
I think you have to live through it. Yeah.
Because you're right. Like, if you experience both sides of a thing, then you'll feel it in your core as to which one is the better one to be.
I remember saying to my mom, like, because I did an English degree in Scotland, and then when I was applying for it, my mom was like, "Please don't freaking do an English. That's not gonna help." I remember saying to her, "But this is my mistake." And she was like, "This is a mistake." And I was like, "I don't care. This is my mistake. I have to make the mistake." If and it's led me to do this, so I'm quite happy that
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. Do you feel like it was a mistake?
No, I don't think people. I don't think you can know what you want at 18, or like, I think you can have things given to. I think people can be like, "Oh, you should follow this route," and you can accept it, which I don't think it's wrong. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think like the past few years I'm trying to like forgive myself for not knowing. I just knew I wanted to leave Singapore, no matter how tough it was. Like, if we had to like borrow money from the uni, if we had to like, I was just like, I can't stay here. So I was like, okay, I'll just get an English degree in Scotland.
Which university did you go to up
I
in
went
Scotland?
to St Andrews.
Really?
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine who's actually a lecturer at St Andrews.
Who?
It's Dr. Collins.
Shout out.
Shout out Dr. Collins.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, went to school together.
Really?
You know, sometimes when like you got someone in your life who's got a PhD and they're a doctor,
That's
and then
so
I'm
cool.
like, I don't have that. But yeah.
Do you want that? Do you want a PhD?
Now that is the question. No, that genuinely is the question, because
Yeah.
anytime I feel as though I'm not living up to the accomplishments of others, I ask myself the question, do I want it?
Exactly.
And a really interesting thing I heard recently was that if you are envious or jealous of someone, that's not always a bad thing, because it gives you an indication as to what you really want. Because if someone came up to me and said, yeah, I got a PhD, I'd be happy for them, but I wouldn't be jealous of them. I might be introspective and think, oh, they've done a lot with their time on this earth and I haven't got that qualification. But I wouldn't be jealous. It would be more a case of me just taking stock of what I've done and trying measuring up. But when you see someone who has something and you feel jealousy or envy, it's mainly because there's a part of you that wants the same thing. So that's a good way of honing in on what you really want. Yeah. And then if you can, go and work for it. And hopefully you get the same thing at some point, you know?
Of course. I think all the emotions in our toolbox are exactly what they're like, tools in that, like, I think we're meant to feel like happy, sad, jealous. I think it becomes harmful if you lean too much into it. It's like fire, I guess, as a tool. Like,
right.
If you're too sad, like, I think that's like debilitating. But I think like, yeah, I think a little bit of jealousy is really good, but don't like lean into it.
No, if you lean into anything too much, then you know you could obsess, and then it becomes counterproductive. You know.
Yeah.
So you did your English degree at St Andrews.
English and film.
And film. Okay.
Hell yeah, movies, books and movies.
Tell me a bit about how you got into comedy. When did that start?
That started. The first special that I really loved was Eddie Murphy Raw. What
a special. That was...
Wait, is that the orange one or the purple one?
Raw was when he was wearing the red leather suit.
Okay, yeah. There's the red one.
And then previous to that was Delirious. Wait, am I getting mixed up?
I think Delirious is the red one.
Is Delirious the red suit? Am I getting mixed up?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, it's one of the red one. I watched the red one was... I enjoyed the red one. I don't know. Right. Now I don't know. Now I'm thinking Delirious is the red one.
I'm not.
And Raw might be the purple one.
I think Raw. No,
I don't know.
I think Delirious was the purple one and Raw was the red one.
I'm
going Delirious, purple.
Yeah.
Raw, red. Where you going?
I'm going Delirious red. Oh, I don't know.
Because I'm telling you, we're not gonna find out now. But in post production, I'm making this into a clip.
I'm gonna. Oh my god. I think I'm gonna go Delirious red. And then I remember like laughing so hard that like my stepdad scolded because it was like 1 a.m. and I was like disturbing the neighbors.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, this is so cool that it's just him and a mic. It's just him and his words, and he can hold people's attention. So I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. But I didn't really like, I was never like, oh, I want to do this. And then I think I went to, and then I kept getting into it, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to an open mic in Singapore, and I was like, oh, okay, this is the standard. Oh, like I was like, it wasn't bad. It was just like most open mics are of this standard. I was like, oh, so it doesn't have to be like movie standard. You can just do this, and you can not be good. I was like, okay, then I'll just go up there and not be good. And then I think once you start, you can't. Like I don't think. Like I just never stopped.
You get a little bit of a addiction, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember having a very similar thought process to you, and I even tried to write a bit about it, where I was like, in life, you need people to be great, but you also really need people to be shit.
Yeah.
Because if people aren't shit, then it won't give you the confidence sometimes to be like, oh, well, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You have to see both sides of it, and the beauty of what you can accomplish, but then also what it looks like at the bottom, you know? When you
it just, I think for the longest time in my mind, I was like, you are either not a comedian or you are on TV. And it's like, no, there's a whole range that you can sit comfortably in the middle and still have a career. And I think learning that was like really helpful for me.
How would you describe, and this is one of the questions I hate the most in terms of describing art.
I'm so excited.
But genuinely, how would you describe what you do on stage? Your brand of stand-up?
I think recently I've seen it as like, I want to be at play. Like I want to feel like what I'm saying is so goofy and ludicrous, and like lets everyone just have fun like we were on the playground. I think a lot of my show is, maybe it's not about that, or maybe it's just how I'm feeling it. I really miss I have a strong nostalgia right now for like childhood, and I think that's kind of shaped the way I perform, which is just like, let's just say things that aren't true. And it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is this nostalgia for childhood come from? When did it start to kind of like arise within you?
I think after graduation, I was like, okay, I'm responsible for my life now. And I think being away from home, I just associate Singapore with so much like joy and freedom, even though like I was either in school or in the military. Like a lot of things were like, you just have to follow the thing, but there was still so much like fun with my friends. So I think a lot of it is like missing home, and then that indirectly leads to like missing that feeling.
Got you.
The UK feels very much like I'm here for work and I have to succeed.
You said military.
Yeah, I was in the army.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that compulsory service in Singapore?
It's compulsory for boys,
Yeah?
Yeah.
At what age do you have to start your military service in Singapore?
It's usually 18, but there's ways where you can postpone it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very, very small percentage of people postpone it.
And how long do you have to do it for?
I did it for 2 years.
Got ya. What was that experience like?
It was kind of fun. It was very boring. Some of it was fun. Most of it was boring. I did a very easy job.
What was that?
I drove like an armored vehicle in infantry. Some of my friends had to like, my best friend Joshua had to like jump out of a helicopter. And my other best friend Jun Chuan, he was like a Navy officer. Like I had honestly quite an easy one.
Do you get to choose, or do they just...
They see how good you are at things. So
Okay,
I was not good. And then so basically like when before you enlist, I think 1 year before you enlist, when you're still in like when you're 17, you have to do like a physical exam, like a physical test, where you do like push-ups, sit-ups, and like running. And if you're like, I think from that they see how fit you are, and then they would put you in, and they would see like eyesight and stuff. Yeah, if you failed the test, you have to do 2 extra months of army. And the thing is, like, some people don't know. Like, my friend Rananje doesn't know about this rule. So he went in, and he's fit. He just didn't try He was like, I don't care about this test. So he went into the army, like, 2 months earlier than everyone. And then he realized, like, everyone here is, like, way slower than me. Why is that? And they were like, oh, we're here because we are not healthy. And he was like, what? I could have skipped. He completely messed up.
Goya, I love the idea that some of your friends, like you had one friend who was jumping out of a helicopter.
Yeah.
And then like they assessed you and your capability, and they were like, we need to put this guy in an armored vehicle. Like, you know, like we need to protect him as much as we can. We got one guy who we're going to throw out of a helicopter, and but this guy right here,
this is the prince.
Put this guy in an armored vehicle. No, bless.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I think that used to exist in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, or some sort of military service, or I forget what they used to call it, but that all went away. Do you think it helps in terms of discipline?
No. Here's how I think. Things like discipline, right? I'm sure it helped for some people. The issue with I think it's a myth of like, if you go through the army, you become a disciplined. But I'm like, you're disciplined because there is authority above you. Like, yeah, I woke up it was excellent. Like, I woke up at 5 a.m. all the time. It was like very healthy. But I'm like, just because I had to. Right. And you can completely leave the army and just throw that away. The same way, like, I'm sure if you have a 9 to 5, you're gonna freaking be disciplined. So I think like the one takeaway that I'm quite grateful for is like, I think I'm quite open to discomfort. If like I used to take the night bus when my last year of uni, I used to take night bus from like Edinburgh to London to bomb at a 10-minute set, and I was like, it's like really draining. But I think I was like, okay, I would be like, oh, I used to sleep in the mud, like this is fine.
Right.
Or
right.
like it could be worse.
Yeah.
I think I'm more susceptible to like discomfort.
I get you.
No, I'm more like
I think susceptible. Yeah.
I think I'm more like open to it.
Right. I guess and when you've pushed yourself to certain limits, I think that's why they say like practice hard, play easy. That's a quote or something I've heard before. But if you practice hard, you play easy. So, you know, make that practice the hardest thing possible.
Yeah.
Because then when it comes to the actual game, it'll be like, you know, seamless, effortless. And that's what it sounds like you had that experience of the getting up at 5 o'clock, the sleeping in the mud. And then you think, well, if I just have to sit on this bus for 7.5 hours, then I could do that, you know?
I've only slept in the mud once. Like my army was really easy compared to, but also there were people who had easier lives than me. So it's a whole range. Like you can go from, some people just did admin.
Got ya. I mean, I would put me in an armored tank any day. I wouldn't want to do admin. Like if admin is soul destroying.
But I think admin for the army might be a bit stressful. Like people they like if you mess up something, like that could be
that could be someone's life, and they might be there in the armored tank like hold on a second, someone didn't file that paperwork.
Yeah, exactly.
Now my tank's on fire.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends. It's a whole spectrum.
In your eulogy, you mentioned giving away some goodie bags, and in said goodie bag were tickets to Soulja Boy. Are you a rap fan?
I love rap.
Yeah? Who do you like to get down to? Who's your favorite artists?
I think since Kendrick dropped those diss tracks, that's the only thing I can listen to.
What were your thoughts on the Kendrick and Drake beef?
Oh my god. What are my thoughts? I have so many.
Well, let's start with an easy one.
Okay.
Who won?
I think Kendrick won before it started. And I think, and it is true that like people just like to hate on Drake, but it is that thing of like, oh my god, I have so many thoughts on. Okay. I did like that because I think Kendrick won. I think it's important to talk about the parts where Drake shines, so it's not a biased thing. When in push-ups, when Drake is like, you did a verse for Maroon 5, you did a verse for Taylor Swift. I think that's a good angle because it's like, I think when people talk about Drake and Kendrick, it's all, they sort of amplify the worst parts of each other. So like people are like, oh, Drake, all you do is like shopping mall music, blah, blah, blah. And it's like not true. There's moments where he can be like introspective, and some of the music is good. Mm-hmm. And then I think when people criticize Kendrick, it's like, oh, all you talk about is like trauma. Like, we can't play this in the car. Like, this is scaring the hoes. Like, no one's dancing to people to like listening to your trauma. And it's like, that's also not true. Like, he has bangers.
Right.
And I think people like to take both those elements and really enlarge it. And I think like what Drake did was like, oh, like you can also succumb to industry pressures. Like, you're not this Pulitzer poet like all the time. In the same way that like I don't think Drake is just a like someone who just churns out garbage.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, like, let's be real. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when it's just like, of course, Kendrick.
Yeah, I think you make a really valid point in the sense that every artist, or people made out that Drake is like the kind of artist that just sells his soul and makes music, as Kendrick said, just to pacify people. Yeah. If you are going to jump on a track with Maroon 5 and Taylor Swift,
You know what I mean?
you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot with that argument.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a fair point. But I am also I love a bit of Drake. Yeah. I mean, I've been a Drake fan since the start.
I do love him.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
But when you listen to the tracks back to back, oh, it's
Kendrick's mean.
Kendrick went devilish. I mean,
I was so excited, dude. That one day where like. Where he released like I think it was 616 in LA, Meet the Grams, and Not Like Us in like a span of like 30 hours.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't care about anything else. Like, it was so fun. It was just fun.
I was just like having conversations. People would be texting me like, "Have you heard the new one?" I'm like, "There's another one. Is there another one?"
It's so, like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I've got two schools of thought. And one is like more to do with hip hop and like the fun of it, the back and forth, and the other one is maybe a bit deeper. So like the hip hop one is like, I love a little bit of back and forth. I like lyrical battles, wordplay, the humor of it too. So I think rappers and comedians have so much in common because it's the wordplay, it's the double entendre, it's the use of language, and also like even just putting little nuggets in there that you hear and you might have to go and Google it and be like, who is that person? Oh, so that's who and that relates to that. And it's like deciphering some cryptic language, right? And I love all of that.
It's so funny.
And I thought that it was done. I thought that obviously Kendrick went very deep. Drake went pretty deep also, once you start speaking about families and also like potential abuse, like it was getting nasty,
But the thing is, Kendrick was saying you exploit people and I don't know anything about like if he's like proven to be like a nonce and blah blah blah, but Kendrick is saying like what you're doing is destroying the community, and then Drake was being like, haha, you got molested. So I think that's just terrible for him to say.
Well, this is the thing, it's like in many ways once someone comes out and goes, you're a pedo,
it's
you got to do whatever you could do to fight back, right? Because the thing is, I don't think Drake is a pedophile, right?
I don't know.
But let's face it, if he was or if he is, you'd imagine that sort of information is gonna come out at some point, or probably would have come out by now.
I think the rumor stuff, like the factoids, I'm like, oh, this seems believable. Like I'm like, there's like enough here that I'm like, okay.
This is the tough thing about allegations.
Yeah.
Because once someone makes an allegation against you, it's just so hard to shake it, even if it's not true, right? That's why, like, so to come out and be like, yeah, you're a pedo, it's like, oh, I got to defend myself now. But then there will still be some people who are like, yeah, but maybe. But yeah, so on that level, I just think it got really dirty. It got really nasty.
I also just think like, if you look at if you look at Euphoria, it just starts on it's just such a creative song, and like it starts off so calm, and I've never heard a diss track that's not hype.
Right.
When you played the first 10 seconds, I was like, if this is just this for 6 minutes, I would be kind of intrigued.
Yeah.
And then like you have like the West Coast bounce in Not Like Us, and then you have the really like dark like Meet the Grams. So I'm just like, as a catalog, I'm like, this is so diverse.
I mean, those 3 diss tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about the 616 in
That
LA.
song is beautiful.
I don't think I listened to that one enough.
He said, "I live in circadian rhythms of a shooting star." I was like, who says this on a diss track?
On a diss track,
Like, what are you
like
saying?
you could probably release all of those songs as like a EP, and it would be like there's so many ranges in all of them. I agree with you on Euphoria. Also, the way it starts, me and my mate, like we call each other up and we just go so. So beep, beep, beep.
Oh, dude.
It's crazy. It's so good. But the deeper level, which I'll touch on, is just
please.
it's just from a black perspective of like how they like people attacking Drake's blackness, right? And the reason I was a bit frustrated by that part of it is just because like back in slavery, there's this idea of this 1 drop rule, I think it was called. And like if you had any degree of black in you, if you were mixed race but you had any ounce of black, then you were just seen as black. You might have been put in the house so you didn't have to work in the fields, but you were still treated as a second-class citizen. And so to see black people doing that towards other black people, I just felt like that's where the culture gets affected. That's the deeper side to it. I enjoyed all the raps. Like, don't get me wrong, I was still bumping them, and I still bump Not Like Us because that's a banger. But it was just that thing of, oh, look, it's like now we're black people tearing down black people around race.
I see.
It's like internal racism, which does exist. And it's just like, well, you know, if you are this kind of advocate, as Kendrick puts himself forward for like black people and black empowerment, then that's kind of counterproductive.
Do you think Drake was kind of attacked for his biraciality? Is that?
Oh yeah, massively. But I think anybody who's of a lighter complexion in the black community, there's certain stereotypes and ideas that we have in the black community. I don't necessarily share them, but I know that they exist, where it's like, oh, if you're light skinned, then life is easier for you. You're more attractive, you're more desired. And that creates internal racism and internal fracture and like factions within a race. And I think that's not helpful for the progression of anybody, you know?
I saw a thing, and I want to get your thoughts. I saw a thing where someone said like, J. Cole is also biracial, but that's not placed on him because we feel like he is part of the culture, whereas Drake doesn't like speak on black issues. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that's fair to say? Or
I feel as though not speaking on an issue doesn't mean that you're not part of the culture. You know, it's like, would you class yourself like as, obviously you would class yourself as Chinese, right? But if you didn't speak out about anything that happens with anything to do with China, and when I say that, I mean like if there was a terrible thing that happened and you didn't speak out about it, it doesn't make you any less Chinese. You know what I mean? It doesn't make a person less of their race just because they don't speak out about something.
I see.
And I think if you put that sort of pressure on people, then really you can exclude a massive majority of people from all races, because not everyone has that strength of character or the will to want to speak out about things. Doesn't mean that you don't feel a certain way about it, but you might just deal with that in your own way. And also, let's not forget, Drake's here to entertain, man. It's like, you know, it's like, what do we want from our artists and everything? It's like, it's a personal decision.
Yeah.
But with J. Cole, when you think about it, yes, they're both mixed raced. And J. Cole's got the dreads and he speaks out about black issues. So in many ways, people are probably going to look at him and think, he's more for the culture. But they're effectively the same mix.
Right. I think there's also that thing of like, I think people are like, oh, he's from Canada and that's not America. I think there was a bit of like,
there was a bit of that. There was a bit of the fact that he's maybe like,
which is, it's just, I mean, that's kind of funny to be like,
he's Canadian and he's like more middle class, to be fair.
Started from the bottom.
Started from the middle.
It started from the middle.
But yeah, I just think ultimately, it was entertaining while it lasted.
Yeah. It was so fun.
It was fun.
I can't stop listening to those songs.
I'm gonna bring this back to your eulogy before we kind of come to an end.
Yes.
But
Sorry, is this vibrating?
no, that's cool. You mentioned putting the fun in funeral, which I thought was very funny. What are some of the ways that you would aim to try and put fun into a funeral?
Dress code has to be not monochrome. You gotta dress up. You gotta like wear your club outfit.
Love it.
The playlist is gonna be sick. Okay, my ideal funeral is like, I want it to be like a coming of age movie where most of it is fun. And there's a bit of poignancy, like, oh, we've really lost Jin Hao. But it's still like, oh, okay, we had a good time. I think that's my ideal. Yeah.
I love that.
There'll be a tinge of sadness there.
So we got a dress code on fleek. Yeah. Hell of a playlist.
Games.
Okay, games. I'm loving that.
A pub quiz. A Jin Hao trivia pub quiz. Now that he's gone, how much do you know him? I think that'd be so fun.
This is so good.
These
are like ideas that I might actually have to steal.
Like, that's a good, like, yeah, everyone should do. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fun to me. There's a question I ask everybody who comes on the pod. Please. And this is the last question of the pod, really. But it's what's the one bit of advice that you should take, but you just haven't taken it yet?
Wow. I'm going to shed a tear right now. People say to me, you have to relax and it's going to be okay. But the thing is, like, I can't shake off stress. I think I have to live through it to get to the okay. So I haven't taken that yet, even though I know they're right, because like looking back, like all the stressful times when like when I was in army, I was like, oh my god, I'm never gonna get into uni. And when I was in uni, I was like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Every problem has been solved, so I know for a fact that it's all gonna be okay. I still can't trust that the next stage will be that way.
So the ability to just relax and believe that it's going to work itself out.
That's a tough thing to do for me, I think.
What do you feel like you are stressed about?
I'm a bit stressed about the Fringe, about doing the first hour. I'm stressed about... I think I want to be really, really successful before my grandparents passed away, just so I can show them like that my choice wasn't the wrong one. Maybe I think that might be a thing, just because I'm like the only one in my family who's kind of off the beaten path kind of thing, and I think like my grandparents are like a bit like, I mean, whatever, like he's 25 now, like we don't have the energy to tell him otherwise. But I don't want them to think that like I don't know what I'm doing. I want them to know that like this is not a joke. Like comedy is not a joke.
This
like,
shit is for real.
This like, yeah, it's not like I mean this. I'm gonna work hard at it, and I want you to see that like I've made something of it, and it's not just me having fun.
What do you feel like your grandparents and your parents wanted you to do?
Probably something like like a regular, not like a successful position in something that they perceive as like proper, like a proper job. Like the longest time they just wanted me to go to Oxford, because their idea of like success is like, if you go to Oxford you're fine. But things, I think like the job market and things are like so different from where they were. Like when they really wanted me to go to like Oxbridge, like they've never even been to the UK or anything. So I think like I just want to show them like, hey, like I did this thing that is not traditional, but I take it seriously, and like I'm just as successful as my other friends in like proportionally in there. I think I hope I can make it.
No, well,
Yeah.
look, I can definitely understand where you're coming from in terms of that desire of wanting to show, you know, your parents and the people in your family that, like, you know, I've done this and I committed to it and I'm successful at it.
Yeah.
And far be it from me to give advice
Please give
on
advice.
that. But I feel like one of the biggest things that we can do as artists, whether it be comedy, music, whatever, is just to have a level of understanding as to what success means to us, and to kind of fill our own cup with regards to that. Because I was having a conversation recently with my girlfriend about validation, and the fact that I've always chosen endeavors that require validation from others to prove to me that I'm doing it right. So, you know, with comedy, we long for laughter because the laughter suggests that the thing we thought was funny is now confirmed to be funny.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you want to be signed because then it's another stamp from someone else saying, we think you're good enough and we want you. And it's all of this validation. So it's like I'm seeking acceptance and joy and purpose through external validation. And so what I kind of came to the conclusion of is I need to find that internally. I need to be able to get on stage or do whatever I'm doing and feel like I validate myself and I'm happy with this. Because I hope this isn't the case, but you could gain what you see as success.
Yeah.
And then go to take it to your parents and your grandparents, and they still might look at you and be like,
true.
well, we don't know this world.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why, in my opinion, know what your success is for you. And then regardless of what anybody else thinks, at least you know you got what you wanted, you know? But like I said, I say that in the sense of, and I always qualify any advice with the idea of I know nothing, right? And any advice I give is generally advice that I need to take myself, you know?
I think that's good. Yeah. That's a good sign.
Thank you.
No, that's a good... I think that's a good perspective. And I think I try to do that sometimes, but I think it takes time.
And that is the most true words that anyone will ever speak, because the truth is, it all takes time, man.
Yeah.
It all takes time. Every single thing, but it takes time. Yeah. Jin, thank you so much for taking part in this episode of Eulogise Me. I really appreciate you being here. And if I can say this from one comedian to another, listen, I really feel like you're on a great trajectory for the things that you're doing. So the nerves you're feeling about Edinburgh, they're natural. And it would be weird if you didn't feel any nerves or any stress.
That would be crazy.
But I feel But I feel like those nerves and that stress is what's going to propel you to smash it. So
thank you.
All the very best up there.
Thank you so much, Ruben.
And
thank you so much for having me.
For being on the pod. No, thank you.
So much for having me.
Sweet. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.